Hey guys, we're going to try this for my cell phone, and you'll have to tell me if it works. I, I'm desperate to make this work. How crazy is this? Oh man, I am so sorry. It was such a beating. Can't stand it. If you're there, let me know. Hopefully you can find this. Okay, my screen says very bad connection, which is total BS. Hi, Jimmy. Tell me how it's working. I'd love to know. Tied. So it's just as bad as before? I mean, my screen has the words very bad connection on it. Hi, Brenda. We're trying everything we can to make this work today, and it sure does not want to work at all. It's being super stubborn and annoying. As soon as you said that, it's buffering. Of course it is. I just wanted to say great connection. That's all I want. That's why I don't use my phone. I want to use the laptop because it's on the network and it's got a better signal. Okay, so the audio is coming through at least. It's just the video is kind of craptastic. I don't know what it is. I really don't. I guess it's possible it's on YouTube's end, but I guess if you guys can hear me, I'll just proceed to talk and it'll just be a staccato type of video. All right. Water quality. Let's just get to it and see what happens, because we have just been destroying our time messing around. We've used the 45 minutes I want to use for nothing. In a nutshell, you want really stable water parameters. I'm trying to figure out where to even look. Okay, you want very stable water parameters, which means you have to pick a target and you have to stick to it. That's the whole point of this stream, and if that comes through, I feel like I've already taught you something you needed to know. So, I made this chart, and this is just a few parameters, and I put some numbers on here because I wanted you guys to see basically the target area we're looking for. Now, what I would do is I would find a spot in here that you like and stick with it. So for example, alkalinity, we say anywhere between 8 and 11 is fine. It's a good target, but we don't want to bounce 8 to 11, 8 to 11, 8 to 11 every couple of days because your corals will go nuts. So instead, we want to pick a spot like right here, 9.5. And if that is your number, that's the number you want to be at all the time. Every single time, day in, day out, as close to that number as possible. Don't shoot this way, don't shoot that way. Don't let it drop off. How will it drop off this way? If you stop dosing alkalinity. As soon as you stop dosing it, your tank alkalinity is going to come down because the corals, the fish are absorbing it. Even coralline's using it. And so it depletes because it's being used. And if you add too much at a time, it raises. So how do you keep this number on target? First thing you do is test for it. And it's really important that you test every single week. And I feel like a lot of us don't do that. And I'll tell you why. I had a guy that, I'm going to show you guys something here too in a second here. I had a guy who told me his water quality was a certain way, and it was a conversation on Facebook. And he told me, yeah, I've got that. You know, I've got that device or that item. I can't remember the exact conversation, but the point was that he said he had it, and I told him instantly, you need to use it. So for example, if you have a test kit and you're filled up with goodies, you know, you've got your liquid solution, you've got your measuring card to see, you know, telling you how to measure. But if you leave this thing on the shelf and you don't open it up and you don't use it, it's pointless. So we're not trying to we are trying to avoid being lazy at all costs and get on track to test regularly. And I feel like if you get a weird measurement, test again. So if you measured it once and you got this crazy number, retest one more time. If you still have a crazy number, the next thing to do is look at the livestock and verify that it's healthy. You know, see if the fish are swimming right side up, see if the corals are normal or if they're contracted or if they're expanded too much. You know, kind of use some visual clues from your reef to see the condition of the tank. If you are testing every single week with this kit, and it's just an example of a kit, you should have a year's worth of testing. You should have about 50 to 52 tests in a box. So if you buy a kit and you only use it 6 times in a year's time, that doesn't mean you've got 3 more years of testing left in it. These things have an expiration date right on the box that tells you when it's no good anymore. So it's really important for you to actually use it. So I wanted to ask you guys to help me be a better water tester. And in return, I'm going to help you be a better water tester as well. And by doing this, I'm suggesting that we work together. And we're going to use Instagram because I think it's the easiest way to do this, because you guys don't have YouTube channels necessarily. So first of all, I'm going to show you my parameters for right now. Try not to move those around too much. This is my parameters as of today. And you can see my alkalinity is at 9. My nitrate is nice and low. Magnesium is where I'd like it to be. Calcium is at a good spot. Phosphate's too high. Salinity's too low. Temperature's fine. pH is what it is first thing in the morning. That makes sense. It'll be higher later today. And ORP, you can ignore that. That has nothing to do with you. But if we would test our tanks on Saturdays and post our results on Instagram, I feel like we could really help hold each other accountable. And that's what I want to do. I want to say every Saturday, here are my results. This is what I measured today, which proves to you I'm water testing, gets me back in the habit of testing every Saturday. And if you'll post your results as well, it's kind of like I'm watching your tank and you're watching mine and we're working together. And see, about a year ago, it's really funny, a buddy of mine sent me a text that said his alkalinity was such and such. And then he said, friends don't let friends not test alkalinity or something like that. And it caught my eye. It was hilarious because basically he was calling me out saying, well, what's your tank? Because mine is this. And actually it would be great if we would slingshot back and forth and actually tell each other how we're doing with our water, because the worst thing you ever see anyone post online, and it happens every day, probably hundreds if not thousands of times, people say, what's wrong with my fish? What's wrong with my coral? My water is fine. We got interrupted because a phone call tried to come in. How rude is that? See, that's another reason not to be on my phone. The ability to test your water on a regular basis is very important. So if you don't own your test kits, you need to buy them. If you are just relying on the fish store to test for you, that's okay. I mean, that's fine too, as long as you're getting them done every single week. But again, if the fish store says your water is fine, that hasn't taught you anything. And it's just like if you own a swimming pool, you have to test the water to make sure it's safe to swim in. And if you have an aquarium, you should know the water quality. And if you have an RO unit, you should know the results of your RO system. If you're not measuring the water for TDS, if you're not checking the filters and changing them regularly, you're actually doing yourself and your tank a disservice. So it's very important to keep up with these things. So I talked about alkalinity first. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be calcium. Calcium, the range is between 275 and 350. I kind of like to be right around 325. That's my goal. Magnesium, the lowest number we usually want to aim for is 1280. And 1280 is a good number. It's matching natural seawater, but I like to shoot a little bit higher. And honestly, if I can keep it at 1400, I'm golden. Because my Monteporas need magnesium. And when they don't get it, they lose their color. And right now, I've got some Montes that are unhappy in my tank. I got some other ones that are happy, but it's measuring today at 1300. And that's another one of those tests that you have to do 3 times. Magnesium is a weird one because just a slight deviation in the amount of the drop you put in the vial could throw off your number significantly. So the smartest thing you can do, and a guy told me this years ago and I never forgot it, he always said test magnesium 3 times and divide by 3, and that's your average. So you could do that. I only tested once today, but I got 1300 and I was happy. But it would have been smarter for me to go 1300, 1350, 1300. Like, okay, I'm at 1325. That's my average. So you want to definitely do that. Salinity. This one here matters when it comes to what kind of tank you're keeping. If you're running a fish-only system, you can probably keep it down at 1.021 specific gravity, or SG. But for those guys with reef tanks, we like to be 1.026. Right now, my tank is at 1.024. It's a little low, and I have a big tank. I'm right here right now. That's my spot, and it's not a good spot. So I need to bring it up. The easiest way to bring this number up is to top off with salt water every day instead of fresh water. And that will bring up the salinity gradually over the next 3 to 5 days. And then I can go back to RODI water. Next page. Now we're going to talk about temperature. Temperature is another good one. And this one here, what it does is it varies throughout the day. As the home gets warmer or the office gets warmer, the tank warms up with it. And then as your business or your home cools off, the tank cools off, there's always a variance. And so I show a number of 76 to 80. That's not your entire zone you're aiming for. What I'm aiming you for is a tight area. You're basically looking for a spot that is basically maybe about 2 degree swing per day. And it could be 2 degrees here, it could be 2 degrees here, it could be 2 degrees here. But that's a big swing, and a lot of people like to keep it within half a degree all day long. They'll run chillers and they'll run heaters, and they try to run them where they're not, where they're not running at the same time. But they want to keep that temperature so stable that it never varies, that the temperature is just constantly like this all the time on the tank. My tank kind of goes up and down and up and down every single day. My heaters come on at night because I keep the house cold, and then the tank warms up during the daytime, and I have a cooling fan that helps bring the temperature down. But basically, in the winter, my tank is 77 to 79. And in the summer, my tank is 78 to 80. Yesterday, it was 81. It was a little bit hotter. The higher you go in temperature, the more likely oxygen levels are going to drop on your tank, and that's going to hurt your livestock. So, I mean, there's no air, and they can't breathe. So if your tank hits 85, and I read some comments recently where people are like, oh, I keep my tank at 85, 86, 87, I have no problems. That's amazing. I don't know how they're doing that. But if it was me and it was 85 degrees, I would put in an air stone and a big air pump and pump all kinds of oxygen in the tank for those fish so that they would be okay. Maybe they have little tiny fish. Maybe they have mostly only corals. I don't know what they have in their tank that can handle 85 and up. That's really hot. So I don't recommend that. Phosphate. This is another good topic. This is a topic that is discussed at MACNA. It's discussed online. People worry about it all the time. I don't worry about it, but I do care what it is. And obviously, the higher the number, the more likely I'll grow algae in my tank. And right now, today, my tank is measuring right here, 0.5. So it's a little bit higher than I would like. I would prefer it to be around this point right here all the time, 0.1. It doesn't have to be 0. 0 is actually too low, but 0.1 would be a good area to aim for on a regular basis. If it gets to 0.25, that's not lots of phosphate. I see people post that. Oh my God, my phosphates are way up. They're 0.25. 0.2 of a part per million, that's very low. That's not crazy high. Crazy high is, here's 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and my tank has been at 3.0 in the past, a couple times. That's crazy high. But when you're way down here on the graph, you're fine. It's not a big number to worry about. I shouldn't use the word fine. It's not a number to worry about. Just aim for a low number. Try to keep it somewhere below 0.25. 0.1 is really pretty good. 0.03 is what the books recommend. Now we'll go on to nitrate. Nitrate's another funny topic. For years and years and years, we all complained, oh my God, my nitrates are so high, how can I bring them down? Obviously 0 is what people would like to hit. And 50 plus would be bad. And who would it be bad for? It would be really bad for corals. Fish can tolerate it. They can handle nitrate that's 50, 60, 80, 100. But the higher this number gets, it can begin to affect fish. And I bought a 55-gallon aquarium years ago that came with about 5 fish and some algae-covered rock. And my nitrate measured 180 on that tank, and I had a coral beauty that looked terrible that was included with that tank. And I, of course, brought the nitrates down as quickly as I could over the next week or so through a bunch of water changes, got them all the way down to about 20. But it took that fish about a year to a year and a half to completely heal and look 100% back to normal, getting out of that high nitrate level. So avoid the high numbers. We want to stay way, way, way down here. And I would suggest around 2.5 to 5 would be perfectly suitable for most tanks. If you like the high-end corals, you want it a little bit lower. But 0 is not good for corals either. You need a little bit of nitrate in the water. So 2.5 is fine. I said fine, oh my God. 2.5 is good. And my tank measured today at 2.5, maybe slightly higher. I need to dose some more bacteria. My biopellets are churning, but I would like them to pull it down just a speck more. And then the last one, I listed this last because it's the one I care about the least, pH. Everyone talks about pH, and the funny thing about pH, I guess the reason they talk about it is because every test kit comes with pH, and so they can measure it, and they think, oh my God, my pH is this number, and it's bad. So I put on the graph 7.8 to 8.3. The number that everyone aims for is 8.3. But the number that they often get is maybe 7.9 or 7.8. And so they get very worried about that. Basically, a reef tank will be another one of these 0.2 swings per day. Usually it's low in the morning and it reaches its peak in the evening, at the end of the lighting period. And then it'll go back down to low during the night and then come back during the day. And this is what it does all the time. It bounces back and forth. And that is 100% completely normal, and it's not something to worry about. You shouldn't be adding buffers to raise it up every single day. That's not what it is. That's not how this works. pH is a natural effect of photosynthesis and the lighting cycle. And as the oxygen levels rise in the tank, the pH rises. Somebody posted on one of my videos recently that it's actually displacing carbon dioxide. I'm no scientist, but that does not sound unreasonable, and he's probably 100% right. So we want the higher number. Now, how can you get your number even higher than 8.2 when it's a little bit low? If your alkalinity is where it belongs, which, like I said, somewhere in the range of 8 to 11 DKH, your pH will typically be where it belongs. Now, there's things that depress pH in your tank, and mostly it's CO2. So the more CO2 that's in your house, the more likely your pH will drop and drop and drop. And there was an article written by Randy Holmes Farley. You can Google that. And he did an article about pH and pets. And he put a dog in the room with his aquarium and measured it. And as the dog sat there panting on the floor, the pH dropped on the tank. And then when he filled the room up with a bunch of people, the pH really dropped on the tank because everyone was inhaling all the oxygen. So you want to keep this number up. And one of the ways to keep this number up would be to add fresh air to the aquarium. And one of the tricks that people use is they hook up an air line to their protein skimmer that goes all the way to outside. And if you can't just draw the air in from outside, you could put an air pump outside that pumps that outside air through the wall and into your skimmer to help raise pH somewhat in the tank. But if you're 8.0 to 8.2, that's a good area. You don't have to worry about it. There's some tanks that look really good that are running 7.7 to 7.9 every single day. Typically, those are going to be softy tanks and not the SPS coral tanks. But that doesn't mean your tank is way off when your number isn't hitting the magic 8.3. That's just a goal. And it's not something to 100% ignore, but I really do ignore pH almost all the time. I replaced my pH probe just recently because it was telling me my pH was 10, and I knew that wasn't true. So if you can get somewhere in this range, that'd be great. If you end up and you're in this range and your livestock is doing well, then don't sweat it. That's the point I'm trying to bring out. But I have an article, and I'll put it in the description of this video after it's uploaded, and it's called Don't Chase pH, and I explain all the reasons why and give you some information and some links. And it's just one of those areas that we want to have a certain number, but we don't have... Okay, let me sum this entire presentation up into one thing. How is your livestock doing? If your corals and your fish are doing well, then whatever the numbers you currently have, keep doing just that. I don't want you to watch my video and change what you've been doing when your tank's been doing great and watch your tank decline. I would feel terrible if that happened. But if you have a slight deficit and if you see some of the corals in your tank aren't doing quite as well as you'd like, you could try to improve that one parameter, maybe bring it up slightly, and see if that will help. The one mistake or the one thing that happens a lot in this hobby is that when we finally work on our tank, we work on about 9 things that day. And then things either get better or they fall apart, and we can't isolate what it was we did because we did 9 things. So if you can say, I'm going to focus on alkalinity, and I'm going to dose a certain amount every day, and I'm going to measure the results the next day, I'm going to see how I'm doing. You could lock it into that exact number you're aiming for. It is very important to know how much you're dosing to your tank and providing enough for the demand of the tank. So when it comes to alkalinity and calcium and even magnesium, you're either going to dose those with a mechanical device or you're going to pour it in manually yourself. Or some of you probably don't dose anything at all and just do water changes and think that's good enough. And it probably isn't. When it comes to keeping corals, regular dosings are really pretty much required. I don't really see anyone that cannot dose on a regular basis when they're trying to run a tank. And like I said, I know a few people that do that. And, you know, the system is small, so when they do a water change, they change, of course, they take out all the dirty water. They bring in the new salt water that has a lot of elements in it, and it kind of helps replenish. But if you have corals turning into colonies and they're just drawing and drawing and drawing, they're sucking out of the water really quickly. And it might be that the coral has to stagnate for a few days or a week until your next water change to get another boost of the nutrients it needs. Kind of think of it like electrolytes when you're drinking a Gatorade. And you do that to have a little bit of energy and to be ready to go do your sports. But, you know, then it burns off and you've got nothing until the next bottle of Gatorade. It's a terrible analogy. I was just pulling something out of the air. I'm going to stop there because I have no clue what this ended up looking like. And I just want to see. I apologize this went so badly. It went fine every single time we did this. And somebody suggested a wired connection. I actually tried. I have this connection right here that goes to an Ethernet cord that went to my router that goes in the USB, and I hooked it up and it didn't do a thing. It didn't work like I expected it. So I will see if I can figure out a wired connection and see if that will help us in the future. But in the meantime, we are just going to have to hope that we don't have these problems again in the future. I would like to try to answer some of your questions. If you want to try and type some in now, I'll reply to them. But I just feel like we're so discombobulated today, and I don't know how this is all going to play out. Thank you guys for the compliments. I do appreciate it. You asked about cyano. I want you to go back about 3 weeks when I uploaded a live stream about cyano. That one that's already on YouTube. You can watch that. You have another question? Antonio recommends that everyone watch Chasing Corals because you can really learn from it. And I agree. And I feel like even a person that doesn't care about the hobby could learn from it. They did some beautiful representations of how corals grow in the ocean. Bubba asks me, how do you feel about ICP testing? I haven't tried it yet. I actually am very curious. And I've just drugged my feet. It's not that I'm trying to be lazy. I just need to take some water, stick it in a vial, and ship it. Did I, You know what? I think you're 100% right. I need to rewind. I was operating off of memory. See, never ever do that. Somebody asked me, what do I think of Miley Cyrus? Talk about off topic. Okay, calcium. I think I made a mistake. I'm going to update this. Why did I say 275 is a low? That's wrong. 350, 375, 400, 425. I think 375 is the target area. For some reason in my head when I was typing this, I put 275, and I'm wrong. So my tank right now is measuring at 350, like I underlined right here. And 375 is a good number to aim for. You can go a little higher, 400 if you want, but I would keep it in that general area. And that's the thing about calcium. Calcium doesn't wander very much. As you dose, it just kind of stays. And I've found historically that I'd see very little change. I use a lot of ELOS test kits for my water testing right now. I do have some HANA testers that I have got to start using. And I used to use Salifert in the old days. And I would see my numbers go up and down just slightly, like 0.5 ppm. It wasn't much at all. But aiming for 375 would be a smart number to aim for on a regular basis. Maybe slightly higher. But this right here, that was wrong. I apologize. And if you saw that in the beginning half of the video and didn't see this part, I have failed you and I apologize. Let's try another question. Since we're doing this on my phone, I have about this much room for your comments to appear, and they're there for about 2 seconds and they evaporate. I think some people watching this channel have no idea what to ask. One asked me, why am I a human? Maybe we should stick to saltwater questions? My current nitrate levels are at 2.5, and I keep them down with biopellets. When it comes to anemone care, I would suggest you watch my bubble tip anemone video. It's about 15 minutes long. How often do I do water changes, he asked. Oh man, these are going by really fast now. I haven't done hardly any water changes in the last 18 months. I think I did 2. And it's all because I didn't change the plumbing on my big vat, which I have to take care of immediately. The different types of bubble skimmers can affect... I tried to read that. He just asked, can you ask that again? It said that could the different various bubble skimmers affect nitrate levels? A protein skimmer will help remove waste from the water, which does affect nitrate. It helps export nitrate and phosphate to some degree. It's removing the waste from the tank so it can't break down in the tank and add nutrients. I add, you asked if I use any trace elements to dose since I'm not doing water changes. I dose Prodibio, and I'm adding the Bioptim, the strontium, the iodine, and I add the Biodigest. Those are the 4 I use. Those are my favorites. The other ones like Reef Booster and Coral Vits, I don't use as much because it makes my tank really loud. I mean, it makes it sound like a freshwater tank, which makes it crazy loud for about 6 hours, and kind of bugs me. Okay, guys, I'm just going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for watching. I will be releasing another regular video during this week, and we'll get back on track with the stream. Hopefully next weekend it'll be cleaner. And oh, now the questions are coming in. I don't know why I'm recommended on your YouTube channel suggested videos, but I appreciate that you came by to visit. Carbon dosing was asked about biopellets. I have a biopellet video you can watch. I've got a protein skimmer video you can watch. I've got a cyano video you can watch. These are all different ones we've already covered. And so I'm just going to point you back to my channel to find those. And I'm just going to stop. I give up. I can't stand that I'm doing this on a phone. And it keeps saying very bad connection. And I really can't wait to see it upload and see what it looks like. I want to play it back for myself. You guys have a great day. And hopefully next time it'll be better. Bye, guys.